Autoline Daily is brought to you by Bridgestone, passion for excellence.
Stop the presses, breaking news. Mark LaNeve, who's been running all of sales for General Motors in the United States, is leaving the company. His departure was announced this morning by GM President Fritz Henderson in a conference call with reporters. This should not come as a surprise to anyone, since it's almost like they set Mark up to fail. They told him if he could not increase sales and market share, he would be fired. And since he has not been able to reverse a decline in 30 years of market share losses, Mark LaNeve is leaving the company and the auto industry altogether. General Motors has not named the replacement. This is Autoline Daily for Wednesday, October 7, 2009, and now the news. Red letter day for Delphi. After 4 troubled years in bankruptcy, the supplier is finally emerging from Chapter 11. Spun off from General Motors a decade ago, Delphi never lived up to its expectations. In fact, as I remember it, when Delphi was formed, it had over 180,000 employees, the vast majority of whom worked in the United States. As of today, only 14,000 employees remain in America. And in other Delphi news, it announced that it has renamed its Saginaw steering division. It will now be known as Next Year Automotive. Renault has run into a buzzsaw in Russia. The AFP reports that a couple of years ago, when everything looked super bright in the Russian market, Renault invested $1 billion to take a 25% stake in AutoVAZ. But with the collapse in the global economy, VAZ needs a lot more money, and even Russian Prime Minister Vladimir Putin has weighed in on the issue, warning Renault it had better support VAZ or it will see its investment diluted. The Russian government's worried that mass layoffs in Togliatti, where VAZ is the largest employer, could spill over into social unrest. Every year since 1987, except for one, Hyundai's employees have gone on strike. But according to Bloomberg, that may be changing. Employees just elected a new union leader in Korea who's looking to curb strikes that have cost the company nearly $10 billion and over 1 million units in lost production since the union was formed in 1987. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration is looking into rusting frames affecting Toyota Tundras. According to the Detroit News, the investigation is looking into spare tires and brake lines coming off the frame due to severe corrosion on 2000 and 2001 model year Tundras. No recall has been issued yet, and no accidents or injuries have been reported either. Last month, California was the second largest market for the new Ford Taurus, behind Metro Detroit. That's a good sign that the automaker is finally changing perceptions out on the coast. According to the Detroit Free Press, Ford underestimated demand for the Taurus in the nation's largest car market, and the Taurus had a 60% increase in sales overall last month. In related news, the Freep also reports that the research firm Global Insight predicts Ford will pass GM in market share in the U.S. by 2012 and will only be slightly behind Toyota. They also predict sales will rebound as high as 17 million units by 2014. I don't know where they come up with those numbers, but I sure like what it sounds like. Coming up next, it's time for me to respond to your questions and comments.
Changing tires out here could be dangerous, but with these tires, I don't need to worry.
Bridgestone.
And now it's time for some of your feedback. This is You Said It, where I get to respond to your questions and comments. Alex Kajid wrote in about the collapse of the Saturn deal with Renault and had this to say: I want to suggest the following. What about inviting Roger Penske onto Autoline After Hours? Well, Alex, that's a good suggestion, but I've been trying to get Roger Penske for a long time, and I just can't do it. I don't know what it is. I can get just about anybody else in this industry to come on the show, but I think I probably ticked Roger off when I heavily criticized the Smart when it made its U.S. debut, because they won't even let me have one to test drive now. And quite a few of you saw our report on the red flag limo, which I described as not that bad looking. And everyone who wrote in took exception to my comment. Michael Brown caught the spirit of most reactions when he said, "Are you kidding me? I can't get past that lame-looking front end. No way I'd be seen even posing next to a car like that. And Salvador G's comment was, saying that Chinese car is not a bad-looking car is like saying the bearded lady at the circus is not a bad-looking woman. And our report on the Pontiac G8 coming back as a Chevrolet Caprice cop car drew a lot of comments, but an eagle-eyed Andrew Charles pointed out, the new Chevy Caprice is not a G8, it's a much larger vehicle. Take a good look. The Caprice has a different 6-light greenhouse, a completely different C-pillar, a longer rear end with a larger trunk, a wider rear door, and, if you look closely, even different front quarter panels. And you know, you're right, it's not a rebadged G8, but it did come off the same platform and is almost identical under the skin. And that is it for today's top news in the global automotive industry. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.